give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a goal. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh, bang it in the net.
So the saying is, there's no consoling a beaten finalist. But what is there for a cheated finalist? This is Taff's word. First one since before, I think it was before the playoffs even started, to be honest with you. I'm coming in with a strong one today, and it's quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Relevantly put, EFL officials. So, first of all, I want to touch on the complete lack of class from Morecambe supporters. I mean, we've got every right to feel aggrieved after that final. I don't think there's anybody who can disagree with that. Not even the staunchest Morecambe fan can really look at that and think that, yeah, that game was officiated fairly. So, yeah, we're having our whinges over social media, me through the Amber Army channel, so it's more of a collective whinge than just an individual whinge. And a collective whinge, which I'm sure many supporters agree with. So they've taken it upon themselves to start rubbing salt into the wounds, you know, typical Morecambe classlessness, you know, coming on and trying to justify it somehow. I mean, Derek Adams said he had no sympathy. Just goes to show how much of a prick the man is. He's gone to Bradford. I think those of you who watch these blogs often enough know exactly how I feel about Bradford. So Adams to Bradford is a good fit. I'm just so glad that he's going to be at Rodney Parade, so we can give him a piece of our minds when he does come with Bradford. Hopefully we kick his ass while he's there with him. So yeah, I touched on them justification. So for me, if you are trying to put forward a very weak justification, for me, that is the subconscious telling you that there is a reason for the person on the other side to feel aggrieved. So I say it's a very weak justification. Oh, but the red cards and the yeah, they had a couple of red cards against us, but those red cards were red cards. Maybe the one at their place wasn't, you know, it was contestable, but he takes the player out when he's run through on goal. It's their opinion that there was a defender there on the other side that would have got there in time. I disagreed with that point. I thought he was in on goal for a clear opportunity. The player got sent off. We had players sent off for far worse in the past. So to say that you can justify winning a playoff final through poor officiating purely on the back of, you know, a couple of contestable red cards in their opinion in the league games, I think it's a very, very weak justification and one that they can't really go with. And they're basically trying to say, you know, you lost the game, move on. You know, we deserved it. So that's what I'm going to come on to. Sorry, something stuck in my teeth there. So they did say that they deserved it. A lot of their players, you know, rightly so, that they're putting out about how, you know, how happy they are to win promotion with the club and all that. But then everyone's going on about how they deserved it. So for me, anybody who turns around and say that their club deserved to win that on the back of something other than how things panned out on the pitch tells me that they feel they deserved it more than us. That's a complete and utter crock of shit, in my opinion, because two sides made it to that playoff final in equal circumstances. They obviously did well enough in the league to finish in the 4 playoff spots, and they won their semi-final fairly. Both teams won their semi-finals fairly. We'll say that. And then went into the final. So both 50-50 deserve to be there. So whoever wins, wins. And if they win on merit, they deserve to win. If they win on the back of the way that Morecambe won, they don't deserve to win it. So for them to say, oh yeah, but we deserved it anyway because of our season, is to say that they deserved it more than us on the back of everything that happened prior to getting into that final. A complete and utter crock. Morecambe, yeah, okay, so they got one of the lowest budgets in the league. Fair enough, we've been dealing with one of the lowest budgets in the league ourselves for quite a while. But, you know, saying that, we've had a little bit more due to the fact that we've had some cup runs. Not to say that we've used all of that cup run money, but we've used some of it to bolster our squad a little bit more, to make us a bit more competitive. But we were still, you know, sort of one of the bookies' favourites to go down like Morgan at the beginning of the season. So they're not going to say that they deserved it more than us because they managed to work with their budget better. I'd say that they were pretty injury free for the majority of the season, and fair play to them, they managed to get some kind of consistency. They basically built on a counter-attacking style of play based on a good defence. That's how they managed to win games, and they had those, the pace in their attack to counter people in the right kind of way. So they had the right style of play. I'll give Adam some credit for that. Not that he would ever give anybody else any credit other than himself. I'll actually give him a bit of credit for having the right tactics for a club like Morgan to compete. But at the end of the day, they were able to be consistent because they caught teams on the break and beat them. It's not because they were the better footballing side on the majority of their games and broke them down that way, like we did. Obviously, we were the best footballing side in the first half of the season by a stretch, and I'd say by the end of the season, we were probably the best footballing side come the end of it. What we had to encounter was two main things, like losing a hatful of players who we had on loan. Two of the most important ones being Scott Twine and Brandon Cooper, sorry. So losing those players really affected what we did on the pitch and our game plans, because Brandon Cooper played a particular style of ball play and defending that was a big part of not just the defensive side of our game, but the attacking side of our game. Scott Twine obviously chipped in with some great goals, set some plays up, was a constant threat through the centre, which allowed our wide players to get a bit of extra space to get in and around. So we were able to play that kind of game with those two players. Losing those two players mean we had to go back to the drawing board, and we know when it comes to recruitment, Flynn doesn't always get it right. He's got brought in some phenomenal players, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for that. But yeah, we brought in some players that didn't fill the shoes of the players that went, and we had to regroup, and within that time we hit bad form. And then the deterioration of the pitch that never got to get relayed last summer because of the COVID was a big factor in the style of play. And we were dropping points at home, left, right, and centre to 9-men Exeter, for example, and of course, who else? Southend, for example, as well. We were dropping a lot of points at home. We lost to Forest Green on that pitch as well. They just got the smash and grab. We couldn't play our football, so we dropped a lot of points that potentially you could say would have seen us into the top 3 if we'd have got those points, ifs and buts and all that. But just making the point anyway. So to say that they deserved it more than us because of the way the season mapped out, completely out of crock. So for me, it's an undeserved win in a final because of the way the officials went. The officiating was the worst I've ever seen. And that's saying something. I've been to a lot of county games and I've seen some really, really bad officiating. On this day, it was the worst I've ever seen. I'm not exaggerating that because of the scale of, the height of what we'd lost. Basically, I'm saying it because it was a blatant. What can we even call that? I mean, you can't say that he officiated that game. He was just someone holding a whistle in the middle of the pitch while anything just freaking happened. He stopped the play all the time. Anytime any of our players went anywhere near any of them. I'm saying it wasn't just the two big decisions. Like a double-handed punch in the face isn't a penalty. I mean, funny, anyone else on the pitch does that, they're sent off. The goalkeeper goes out to go and punch the ball. That's their choice to try. They got the right to try and punch the ball. He misses the ball and punches him in the face. It's like a player taking a slide challenge, missing the ball and taking the player out. It's the exact same thing. The keeper missed the ball, punched Scott Bennett in the face. It wasn't a penalty. In my opinion, it should have been a red card as well, if the penalty was given. But nothing was given. Not even anything. He didn't even blow up. He didn't even acknowledge that it happened. And then their penalty, first of all, it wasn't a foul. It wasn't a foul because he's not pushed. Hands are not in the back. All it is, shoulder in, trying to manoeuvre the player away like a lot of their defenders did to our forwards. throughout the match, and it was there right in front of us. You can see they use their bodies to manoeuvre them away. No foul play. We wouldn't have called for a foul for it. They did. Their player took a dive. I'm sorry, but it was a dive, blatant dive. And he made sure it happened in the box when any contact, if any, foul contact, there was none. Contact there was outside the box. And he made sure he got into the box before he went down. He was looking for a penalty. He was trying to con the ref into a penalty. He succeeded and they scored their penalty. And they then went on to win the game on that penalty. They were two blatant big decisions that went against us, which cost us the game. And then they were a lot of small decisions that prevented us from getting going. Like, for example, while we were 1-0 down, we won a free kick in the middle of the park, and we got on a counter-attack, and he pulled it back. We were running forward, and he pulled it back to give the free kick. So there was things like that going on as well. The guy completely and utterly robbed us, basically. The man in the middle tucked us up big time. Now, on a game as big as that, then they didn't have VAR. It's a cop-out, as Flynn said, it's completely a cop-out. And if you're saying, oh yeah, but it's not fair because you haven't had it all season, how can you justify bringing it into the latter stages of the FA Cup? If that's the case, it cost Chelsea a place in the final, potentially, because they scored what looked like a pretty decent equaliser that wouldn't have been ruled offside if it wasn't for VAR and those stupid lines. But Leicester went on to win. That was actually in the final, sorry. So Leicester won the final based on a poor VAR call. But the VAR was there, but it wasn't in their earlier reigns. So how can they justify bringing it into the latter reigns of the FA Cup if that's their argument? There is no argument there. If you're watching this and you're a neutral supporter, if you're a neutral fan watching this now, right, the fact is this could happen to your club. Your club could work bloody hard all season, have a great season, get into the playoffs, get into the final, and have the whole season robbed from them just from one poor refereeing performance. If this is just allowed to just be brushed under the carpet. Oh, we move on. Yeah, the officials did this. We lost the game. We got to move on. Why the bloody hell should we move on? Why should we just allow it? We should make as much noise as we can about it. And if you're a neutral supporter, you should be on board with that 100%. Now, there's nothing that can happen to undo the wrongdoing of that game. But the fact is, it could happen again. And it probably will happen again because we just accept it as that's football. And the thing is, for us, it did happen again. Because this isn't the first time that it's happened to us. We played Tranmere in the final 2 years ago. And it's very similar. This was worse this time because there was two big decisions. They were given something and we were denied something. In the Tranmere game, there was a few occasions where we were denied pretty stonewall penalties. A handball with his hands out, like out to block a shot, that's a penalty. What happened to Jamil Matt was a penalty, but the referee got out of giving that penalty. He got out of giving that penalty because he managed to find a way of making it offside. It was the wrong call. It wasn't offside because it wasn't a pass. He tried to dribble past the player and was brought down. It was a penalty, 100%, and we score that penalty, we win the game. Simple, and we would have been in League One 2 years ago, not just this time. So this was our second chance, and we were robbed of it again. Winning team blinkers is something I got written down here. Now, I know some Tranmere fans, and in their mind, they completely 100% deserve to win that final. We didn't deserve any penalties. If anything, they were denied a penalty, which wasn't a penalty. It was a nothing outside the box thing, which I think was inside the box. It was nothing. There was 3 to 4 penalties, 2 for handball, 2 for fouls. The one on Jammer, the one on Podge right before Mark O'Brien ended up getting himself sent off. I didn't disagree with the red card, but I disagreed with the decision to not give a penalty for a more or less rugby tackle by that fat bastard McNulty on Podge. So it's happened to us twice. So as a neutral, you've got to look at that and think, that could happen to my club. My club could be stolen of a promotion, a deserved promotion, because a referee are getting decisions wrong. So as a neutral, you should want to see some kind of action on the back of this because it could happen to your club. Let's go back to 2017 if we're looking at a consistent run of poor officiating in Newport County games. 2017, as we know, was the season of the Great Escape. 2016-17. In that season, as I say, we were very, very close to getting relegated. Let's just say that we were officiated quite poorly during that season. And I'm going to go through this. We conceded 14 penalties in one single season, which is the most any League Two team has ever conceded in a single season. 12 of them were converted, 2 of them were missed. Like I said, it was the most in League Two history. I'm gonna give some examples of games, actual games where poor officiating cost us at least a point in that game. Luton away, we were about to draw. They got given a penalty for a dive. It was a blatant dive, which their player admitted afterwards it was a dive. Charles Breakspear gave them that penalty. They won the game. We lost a point. We would have got a point from that game. Cambridge away, we've been 2-0 up. We let slip. It went to 2-2. They got a penalty for our player managing to clear the ball off the line, but their player decided to run into him and throw himself into the goal on the back of it. Penalty, red card as well. And they scored that penalty, won the game. That's at least a point that we missed out on that one. Wycombe home, it was 0-0. One of the poorest, softest free kicks I've ever seen given on Darren Jones to give Joe Jacobson the opportunity to score the free kick and win the game. That was one that we got, I'd say we were robbed of at least a point in that one. Blackpool home during Flinney's tenure that season. It was the penalty that Brett Huxtable gave, which I don't think he realised what he wanted to give at that time. I know Flynn complained about it at the end of the game. At that point, we were 1-1, and we went on to lose that game 3-1 in the end. Mansfield away, we were 0-0. Is at a point where we weren't great, but at Mansfield away, it was 0-0. And I can't remember which player it was that got sent off. I think it was like Yenoi Gordon, someone like that. Got sent off for 2 successive bookings. Neither, in my opinion, were bookings. It was a red card, and we went on to lose that game. I think it was 1 or 2-0. Plymouth at home, it was the 2 poor penalties. There was the dive, and we seen it. I was right in my line of sight. I seen Darren Jones's foot come out, and I seen the player jump over it, and I seen him leap over and get himself a penalty. It was a blatant dive. That was the second penalty. The first one was, okay, so I think Joe Day comes out. I think it's a soft penalty, but he sends him off as well. The whole double jeopardy rule. The ball was running away from the goal. Even if he wanted to give the penalty, it wasn't a red card. It wasn't a red card, but he gave a red card against the goalkeeper. And that was when the double jeopardy rule was brought in. Grimsby away, it was a very poor penalty that we conceded. It was Dan Butler who gave the penalty away, but I think it was a poor penalty to give. That was in the last minute of the game, and they went on to win it. So that was 7 games where we had poor officiating that cost us in those games. I'm not saying that we would have got a point or more in all of them, but surely with some of them. But then, if those decisions weren't given, that's a potential 7 points minimum that we lost because of the poor officiating in those games. So you imagine 7 points, what difference 7 points would have made, to the fact that we only just by the skin of our teeth made it. Can you imagine what those 7 points would have done? So, like I said before, we can't just accept that this is just how football is. The reason why VAR was brought in is because of all the controversy around poor decisions. I mean, you look at other sports, cricket, they don't get decisions wrong in cricket. Rugby, they don't get decisions wrong. Tennis, they don't get decisions wrong. There is no sport that I can think of where decisions are as bad. You're going to get some poor calls from time to time. But I don't think there is any other sport in the world that you can look at and think, actually, there's as many contestable decisions made by referees as what there is in football. And for me, that takes something from the sport. It takes a fairness from it. Talk about fair play. There is no fair play if the man in the middle can mess things up and cost you a game. That's not a fair play. There has to, people say, it's part of the game, it swings and roundabouts, but it shouldn't be part of the game. I mean, those refs are there. They're there. The only thing I can think of is that they're poorly trained and that something needs to be done about them. to make them better, to make them make the better decisions. I mean, yeah, mistakes will be made from time to time, and yeah, I suppose that's something you can accept, because mistakes are made in these other sports that I've mentioned from time to time. But near enough, majority of football matches, there's always something that you can come away from there and say, something wasn't right about that match. You know, that decision was wrong. This decision was wrong. This should never have happened. Football with decisions is a matter of opinion, which is why the rules have got to be airtight. Rules will be airtight and be told, these are the rules. They have to be VAR-friendly rules as well, for the sake of the future of VAR. Because VAR is a good thing if the rules are right, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not going to just move on and accept it. And me personally, I want to make as much noise as I can about this. And if anybody from like the EFL gets to see this, you know, I mean, I hope to God that this just makes you think at least a little bit, you know, about the future of the game. Because you're the people running it, and you're the people who ultimately the buck stops with. What happened to my club at Wembley last Monday was your fault. You employed a disgraced referee, you know, who was sacked from the Premier League. He came in. They didn't want him to be a Premier League ref anymore because of how bad he was as well. And you allowed him to take on a game of such magnitude, you know, a promotion deciding game. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. So, as I say, VAR in the EFL playoffs, the last point I'm going to make about this. I mean, is this going to be the catalyst to make them realise, okay, we need VAR in the playoffs? And I'll tell you something now, right? It will be an absolute kick in the teeth for me, because if they do it, it's because they acknowledge that the wrong decisions were made in our playoff final. The wrong decisions were made. Two big calls that were incorrectly called, and both of them affected one club only and allowed another club to take the game and get promoted. So they'll go off to League One. And I want to wish Morecambe all the best, you know, because on reflection, it does come across as a nice story, you know. But the problem is that behind a nice story, there's always some poor bastard there who's missed out on something. You know, like when you got like these romantic stories when, you know, a boy and a girl get together, but you tend to find that somebody was left behind, like, you know, the girl's ex and the boy's ex are left behind because they got together. There's always some poor bastard that's missed out on something in the background. And my club are the poor bastards that's missed out on the back of that nice Morecambe story. So for me, it's not a nice story. It's a hideous story, and I hate it, basically. I'm not putting any punches on this. I'm saying it exactly as I see it. Morecambe have stolen it because their player took a dive. Bobby Madley have allowed them to steal it because he made two bad calls. And now it's the second time it's happened to my club in a playoff final to get promoted to League One. We may potentially lose our manager and a load of players. We've already lost two good players of ours, Tom King and Josh Sheehan, definitely. And then, you know, I mean, there's players like Mickey Dimitriou, Josh Labardi, Aaron Lewis, Liam Shepherd, good players who I really hope sign for us again. We potentially may lose as well. So it could be the end of an era that's been brought down by two badly officiated playoff finals. But we'll see what the future holds for us, Newport County club and supporters. And hopefully, you know, Flynn stays and we have another good stab at promotion next season. Because I think if anybody's going to deserve it next year on the back of anything that's happened to them in the last few years, it's going to be us. Anyway, there we go. If you manage to get through the whole 23.5 minutes of this, I applaud you. It's a big rant from me, but hopefully it's resonating with people. Hopefully you will understand where I'm coming from, and you know, it makes some kind of difference, even a little bit, even if it makes someone think about the way things, you know, are going to be in football in the future in the EFL. Oh well. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Cheers for now, and as always, up the county. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this video. Thank you very much in advance for that. Bye bye.